Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for NFL Week 18. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig, and we've made it to the final week of the regular season. A lot of fantasy leagues are wrapped up at this point. A lot of the best ball tournaments are finished up as well. However, there are still some things up for grabs and some DFS contests and all that good stuff this weekend, and therefore we're going to break it down and give it the same treatment we always do. Let's start things off, Mario, with the Saturday slate. First game of the weekend, we've got the Ravens hosting the Browns. Want to guess what the line is on this game?
Let's see. 18 and a half.
Oh, pretty good guess. It is 18 at BetMGM, 17 and a half at some other shops. But all of that is to say that, the Ravens, if they win.
Who do you think is going to win?
I think the Ravens are going to win, personally, based on that spread. It is the largest spread of any game this season. The Browns are, I think they're going to announce sometime Thursday afternoon whether they're riding with Bailey Zappi or Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
They have to go with Bailey Zappi. It's not a question. I feel so bad for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and it actually is at the point, like, someone, if Kevin Stefanski won't do it, someone else needs to say, the fight's over. Get him out. This is too much.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. I mean, DTR, awesome college football quarterback, but just not really translating super well to the NFL, and he's been given maybe more shots than has
been.
It's
probably the worst sample of quarterback play in NFL history, because no other case would they keep forcing the guy back out onto the field. Like, he's got to be at like 3 yards per attempt at like 45% completed over like 120 attempts. That's crazy. That would never get to like 30 in any other scenario. It doesn't make sense.
It's been rough, to say the least. I will say, for DFS considerations, if you're playing the Saturday slate, I would be a little bit interested in Keaton Mitchell, just because they're not going to run Derrick Henry into the ground.
I really want to see Mitchell. Can you imagine if they unveiled him as being actually, and I'm not getting my hopes up for this, but if he looked like he did last year before the injury, they would actually never punt again. But yeah, I'm assuming the poor guy is only running like a 4.45 right now, which is still not nearly as fast as he was pre-injury. But I would love to be proven insanely wrong there.
As would I. And I think that the setup here, with Justice Hill being a little bit dinged up still from the concussion against the Steelers and hadn't practiced yet this week as of Wednesday. Yeah, I think Mitchell gets a lot of second half run here. And that's interesting to me because, again, I think the Ravens will be kind of shutting it down offensively and just kind of handing the ball off late in this one, just sealing up the division. So that's how I envision this one going. But beyond that, not a lot of other huge fantasy takeaways for me. Let's get to probably the highlight of Saturday. We had a much more competitive game on tap. The other AFC North matchup, that's the Bengals going to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. The Bengals, 1.5 point favorites here.
Yeah, crazy turn of events, but I don't know. As much as the Steelers have had a downswing here and generally have more concerns than the Bengals do at the moment, I'm not totally convinced that the Steelers are toast at this point. It could be more the case that their recent schedule, which has been difficult, arguably more difficult than the schedule where they were thriving, especially with Russell Wilson's hot stretch. There were some decent teams in there, but other than the Ravens, who I think we can say were playing better defense by the second time that those two teams played, there's no tough teams in the first part of Wilson's season, and then the second part, the more recent stretch, there's the Bengals in there once, but Russell Wilson had a big game there, and they won that, obviously, by quite a bit. And then the games where they've been corrected, I would call it correction rather than the team truly regressing or truly getting figured out or whatever. It's just they played the Chiefs, they played at Baltimore, and they played at Philadelphia 3 weeks in a row. So not to say that this Bengals team looks harmless. Certainly the Bengals team now looks tougher than the one that the Steelers handily beat not that long ago. But it's just like we would expect Russell Wilson to be maybe passably good for the Steelers, like good enough for the Steelers to, yes, beat teams like maybe Washington, maybe split the series with the Ravens, beat the Browns twice, sure, but like beat the Eagles, beat the Ravens twice in a season, beat the Chiefs. Like those are things you'd already expect the Steelers to kind of come up short. So they were always a long shot to be like a Super Bowl contender, but I still think they're closer to being one than the Bengals, if only because like the Bengals defense still doesn't look tough, and the Steelers, if the Steelers offense can go, you're in trouble against them because maybe you can keep pace with them more or less, but you have to keep exposing the quarterback to that pass rush, which is generally what the Steelers are trying to do the whole time.
Right, and with Chase Brown being a little bit banged up, like I think it's going to be just a Burrow game for better or for worse, and obviously that's been for the better for a lot of this season for Cincinnati. But yeah, exposure to that pass rush is certainly scary. And it's not like the Steelers don't have anything to play for here either. There are seeding implications in this game. If
They
they
want
were
to
to
knock
lose,
the Bengals out.
they do want to knock the Bengals out. And I think if I'm the Steelers, I'd rather lock in the 5th seed and go to Houston rather than fall to the 6th seed and have to go to Baltimore again. So,
Yeah, no
there's
question.
there's that in play here. I do give it to the Bengals. I think maybe I'm being overly punitive to how the Steelers have played in December, having lost 3 straight. But again, like you said, a really, really tough stretch. But I think that the Bengals, I give the edge to the quarterback here, and I'm just expecting that the Steelers offense to not be able to replicate what it did in Cincinnati earlier this season. So I'm going with the Bengals here.
Fair enough. And Burrow did have a totally good game the last time the two teams played. So I guess I feel, though, as if this requires Burrow to either have an even better game. He had 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception last time. Maybe he needs to go more like 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, which, of course, he can do. I just I feel like the Steelers don't need to go high. Like the Steelers can win, I feel like, without going to their higher range of outcomes, which I feel like kind of with the defense as questionable as Cincinnati's, it puts a lot of pressure on Burrow, and he's responded, of course, with incredible effectiveness the past couple months. It's just, I just really think that Russell Wilson doesn't even have to do that much usually. So, yeah, don't want to have to guess the side, but I'll say the Steelers. Also, I'm deferring to a lot of Hard Knocks derived arguments and narratives, because if you watch it, I think you can kind of see why Mike Tomlin's a better coach than Zach Taylor. And I think in settings like this, details like those kind of come to matter a little more.
No question. And yeah, the Steelers just don't want to be limping into the postseason here. So, I mean, I think they're going to, pull it together here, but I just feel like the Bengals have just been finding a way to dance through the raindrops over the last month or so to keep their season alive. I think they continue to do so in this spot, and then it'll be up to the Broncos somehow losing to the Chiefs backups, but not totally ruling that either. But we'll unpack that a little bit later on in the show. Moving on over to Sunday, but before then, we got a message from our pal Nick Whalen. Going to tell you some things about DraftKings Pick 6.
We're proud to be brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. So many NFL offerings each week over at Pick 6. Been enjoying playing on the Pick 6 platform each and every week of the NFL season. Think a certain quarterback will throw for more than 300 yards. How about your favorite receiver scoring a touchdown? Check out Pick 6, the newest way to play fantasy football and win cash right now with DraftKings. Here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. Yards, catches, touchdowns, etc. Lock in those picks and compete against opponents for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use our code ROTOPICK. That's ROTOPICK. Again, ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. If you're a new Pick 6 customer, play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Just use that code, ROTOPICK. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-89-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick Six not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos.
Appreciate that, Nick. Let's get on over to Sunday. We've got the Panthers and the Falcons. Falcons anywhere between 7.5 and 8.5 point favorites here. The Panthers, I mean, last week they were looking at a very similar spread against the Buccaneers, and obviously didn't really come close to making that one competitive. I go back and forth with this one because I do think it's a big problem that the Panthers don't have a run game anymore to kind of like help prop up Bryce Young. But by that same token, the Falcons have won 2 games this year. Have they won by more than one score? One of which was against the Panthers, though, of note. But that was earlier on before the Panthers started showing a little bit of something. I know the Falcons have a lot to play for in this spot too, but I'm going to use it as a verb, but I could see Atlanta falconing this one up and just kind of letting the Panthers hang around. What say you?
Yeah, cool term.
Thank you.
Good deployment of it. Yeah, I think the Falcons are a really screwed up organization, and they, despite having quite a few good players, especially on offense, I guess, they just aren't good. Like, they're even by the NFC South standards, they're not good. So that the Panthers are also really, really bad is not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean as much here as it might against almost any other team than the Falcons. But I think I don't know. I'm wondering if there's some kind of rationalization Dave Canales can offer about how he came up with the idea for last week's offense, because like, did Chuba Hubbard's knee thing going on IR, was that a surprise? Did Dave Canales like already install an entire game plan that's like 25 carries for Hubbard? Okay, what next? And like, they get to Friday and he's not available. Is that what happened? Because the way they use Raheem Blackshear made no sense at all. Like, Raheem Blackshear is a good running back in my opinion, but he's a pass catching specialist. He's a guy you don't want to give more than 8 carries in a game, but you do want to get him to like 8 catches if you could. They didn't install like any pass catching structure for the running back position, and the receivers can only do so much, but they can only get so many favorable looks when you have no running game at all. And yeah, they did nothing to offset that. Really frustrating. Don't they have like Dylan Johnson from Washington on their practice squad? Like, why didn't they call him up? Why don't they still call him up? Where is he? Someone call him. Yeah, I hate what's going on with that team, and they seem kind of flailing enough at this point that I think this might be analogous enough to at this point for like Michael Penix versus some mid-tier Pac-12 defense. Like, maybe the Panthers are deteriorated so badly that it's analogous to that kind of setting. And maybe even Michael Penix, even with Zach Robinson as his offensive coordinator, can kind of just get it together here. It should be easy with receivers like those, with the running backs like they have, with the offensive line like they have. So yeah, I'll say Falcons. It's just a preseason game, I guess, is why. If you're asking why do they look good here, it's because it's a preseason game.
Yep, it's Nick Whelan dropped a good stat on me earlier about the Panthers and their run defense in particular. I think they've given up 200 yards rushing in 5 straight games. And I think if Atlanta's smart, they make it 6. Like, I think with Robinson and Algier and the just soft nature of this front 7 for Carolina, and you got a rookie quarterback, like, go ahead and just ride the run game until you have to pass.
Do a no huddle, Briles style offense where you get Penix a lot of attempts through the tempo, but you also get 20 carries to both running backs. Yeah,
just keep it up, real fast pace, and should be fine there. But again, I could see that the Falcons like letting the Panthers hang around, but I still think the Falcons end up winning this one against the Panthers. Let's get on over to the NFC East. We've got the Commanders and the Cowboys. Commanders 4.5-point favorites in this spot. And, I think begrudgingly, I would give Dallas some credit for not falling apart. But, with all the injuries that they've had this year and kind of having a respectable record. But I think, and Washington's a different team than going into Philadelphia. But I think that the general accumulation of the injuries on both sides of the ball and, Dak Prescott being out for so long, I think CeeDee Lamb being shut down for the remainder of the season as of last week was sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back a little bit for Dallas. So I do like Washington here.
Right. I know I expected Washington to win the last time these teams played, but I think that this might be cope on my part, but that game was probably just like the 1 out of 10 happening to what on a 5, maybe something like that. It's still a bad bet to think a team in Dallas's condition can beat a team with what Washington has going and what Washington has kind of, at stake still. So definitely expect Washington to control that game.
I do as well. Do you think Terry McLaurin bounces back after kind of being shut out of the box score last week?
Yeah, I would imagine that. So you might have noticed that the Falcons were kind of, I suppose the narrative is probably like, oh, AJ Terrell just shut him down. I don't think that was it. I think they had AJ Terrell on him, yeah, but I think they were also putting a safety over the top the whole time. And the cost might have been those open looks that they kept conceding to Zacchaeus and Ertz. So the defense, the Cowboys may well choose to make the same concession. It might be, and it certainly isn't as fast of a. It might seem like a better death, certainly a faster, not as fast as one, is allowing McLaurin to beat you deep. But there was no defense in the middle of the field there over and over. And if Dallas does sell out the same way to stop McLaurin, I think could be another game for Zacchaeus and Ertz, I guess, because the middle of the field they were kind of leaving open.
So I saw you tweeting a little bit about Zacchaeus over the weekend on the Sunday night game, and I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, maybe it's not really actionable in the sense that, Washington probably goes into this offseason thinking, how do we add more pieces around Jaden Daniels? So it's probably not going to be, oh, no, we're good with Zacchaeus. I think they're going to want something a little bit more, bona fide opposite Terry McLaurin.
They're still waiting on McCaffrey too. They're going to give McCaffrey another shot too.
This is true. But I think for like DFS considerations this weekend, or if you play in playoff leagues, do you think Zacchaeus is on the radar a little bit now?
Yeah, definitely, especially for right now, because I really do think that there is a trade-off that the defense makes when they specifically commit to keeping that safety over the top of McLaurin. I think it does shut down that go route. And I do think, as we saw last week, it's like McLaurin and Daniels can be in a little bit of trouble if that go route isn't there. But the cost is you always have to have a safety over the top. And if you always have a safety over the top, that they're categorically out of the range where Zacchaeus is running, where Zach Ertz is running. And you also can't use disguised coverages with that safety in that area. It's like, what that safety is doing. They can't pretend anything else is the case. So I do think it is like the choice that the defenses face is if they want to put their safeties in the spot to stop those easy catches. For 2 weeks now that Zacchaeus has been getting, I guess McLaurin had a decent game in the first of those two, so it doesn't need to be a total zero-sum thing between the two of them. But the point is Zacchaeus is good in the slot and especially underneath. And he maybe is not as good on the boundary and downfield. Washington's used him in both places throughout the year, but they started to scale back McCaffrey, who was mostly playing in the slot about a month ago. And you're seeing these catches for Zacchaeus occur specifically in the slot. And it looks like, at Virginia, where he was initially a running back, and he would get a lot of underneath, horizontally oriented catches and do a lot after the catch. And it's like he can still do those things. And that's what he's been doing the last 2 weeks. So I think Washington will keep using him now because he's, if nothing else, he's like a crutch that they found that works when Terry McLaurin isn't going. But I don't know. You're right. They're probably going to find an excuse to kind of like move on from him in the offseason. Hopefully, I guess, hopefully Zacchaeus catches on as a slot. Hopefully the league has seen now, like, oh, you can use him that way. And maybe someone will make him their starting slot receiver in free agency or something.
And to, push my Virginia offense of recent vintage agenda even further. I'd like to see Joe Reed get another shot, but
Joe Reed.
But until then,
where is Downey Dowling?
But if nothing else, I will take it as Zacchaeus renaissance and maybe Dontavian Wicks getting things figured out. We've seen
who the true Virginia receiver is, and it's Zacchaeus and not the false King Wicks.
I root for them all. I don't know what it is about.
It's a big day for Zacchaeus truthers. You got to understand.
There's some. It's sort of like Duke, where I can't stand their basketball program, and I think they're all like a bunch of spoiled brats. But Virginia football and Duke football, it's like, look at these plucky underdogs. How about them?
Oh yeah, never fell for that one. It's like beat them up.
Alas, we're on to the Packers and the Bears. Packers, where Dontavian Wicks plays. Pack 10-point favorites in this one. A bit of an interesting dynamic because these games will be going on at the same time, the Packers, Bears, and the Commanders, Cowboys. And so there will be a little bit of scoreboard watching because there could be a flip-flopping of the 6 and the 7 seeds in the NFC. The 7 seed would ultimately play the Eagles, which is probably something that both teams are trying to avoid. So, I think both the favorites prevail in this spot. But what are we looking for in this matchup between the Bears and the Packers?
It should be kind of easy for the Packers, I think, because the Bears are still just a bad team that can't really see to simple football tasks consistently. So things are always needlessly difficult. Things can go completely off the rails. When things go well, it's brief. It doesn't last very long. So I think we can kind of, I think call that Green Bay's advantage for just the fact that I don't think the Bears can show up often. But if the Bears do show up, the Packers should be able to hold serve pretty easily. I don't know.
Yeah, the Bears, I mean, this year has gone so poorly for them. I mean, the whole narrative all offseason was, Caleb Williams stepping into the best situation a number one pick ever has, and things have gone just so poorly. So, larger view, more of like an offseason question for you. But if you're the Bears, what are you prioritizing this offseason? I think you have the skill guys in place, although Keenan Allen obviously going to be getting up there going into next season. But it feels like Caleb Williams, he does it to himself a little bit. But I think at the same time, that offensive line is a complete sieve.
Yeah, there's definitely, and Caleb Williams' part, the need to kind of learn that the game is different than the one he got used to playing, and he needs to just accept that and regroup, make a strategy that is viable for this level. And I think, there is a chance that he never gets it together, but I think it's also kind of when the solution is so obvious, which in this case is he's basically got to be more modest with his ambitions from play to play. Like, you can't always look for the biggest play possible all the time. The backyard kind of playground style of football. Like, you can't really just stand around waiting for someone to get open and to throw a bomb every single play. And you have to sort of instead prioritize keeping the chains in your favor, keeping, field positioning in your favor, and prioritizing that detail, which his current playing style doesn't. And it's just that he shows enough of a kind of like basic, he's generally still very good at this style of play. It's just at the NFL, it's cold points are like too much to overcome. Like in college, he always can just shoot it out, and we can go no huddle, run 85 plays and just shoot it out, get the win at the end. Like in the NFL, it's more like the game gets out of hand if you dink around that way. And if he just instead commits to kind of like, okay, I got to get my earlier read, I got to get out this much faster. It's like, other than like his priorities, it seems like there's not a whole lot wrong, because he seems to have a grasp of how things work. It's not like he's being blind. It's not like he lacks a fundamental understanding of how it works. It's just that he takes too long and takes these risks that don't pay off consistently enough. But the offensive line being bad definitely hasn't helped any of this. The coaching staff being as it is has not helped any of this. There's no one to give them guidance right now. Like, how could that team? Every coach on that team was just kind of like just trying to cover for themselves all year long, and we're not in a position to be real coaches. So ideally, they'd get a good coach, someone who can, credibly direct Caleb Williams as a quarterback, mentor, like say, like, you got to start doing things like this, not this. Get him into a program that along those lines. And otherwise, get a more robust running game and a better offensive line. Everything should pretty much work itself out from there. But I definitely think Rome Odunze is still awesome. I definitely think DJ Moore is great. So I feel like it's an easy reclamation project for some coach who doesn't suck, which is, I guess, the real issue for the Bears, given both the people in charge and the understandable concern an otherwise good coaching candidate might have about working for such a stupid team.
Yeah. And the track record goes to show that they haven't had a ton of success really since Lovie Smith, as far as like hiring a good head coach to keep things stable. So they absolutely have to get that right. I still am a huge believer in Caleb Williams. Interested to see what the ADP looks like in the best ball realm next year. But yeah, I guess my concerns about Williams's play style in college, how it would translate over, those are still there. He definitely just needs to be quicker. But I feel like there's been instances this year where they have gone to like the more like 1-2, get rid of the ball, and he looks fine in those setups.
So like with Justin Fields, for instance, I think his issue was a processing one. Like he would basically take too long to make throws, and it seemed like he was kind of waiting for guys to get too wide open before committing to decisions. And it doesn't really seem like that's Williams's problem as much as he's kind of like, you can see him often start looking far downfield early in a play and fixating on a point and just moving around while focusing on the same point, like waiting for this one thing that it's almost like what Rodgers does sometimes. And then Rodgers will like just bail on the play if that one thing isn't there. Whereas Caleb is kind of doing that and then like never bails on the play and just ends up getting clobbered after like 15 seconds.
Yeah. Someone had a pretty good line on Twitter where like no one can turn a 5-yard sack into a 15-yard sack quite like Caleb Williams, and that's.
But be fair, a 90-second sack also. So it's not just far back.
It's the longest time per yard lost sack average in the league.
You have to give him that. It makes the defense chase him at least.
And then he does often get caught. Let's move on over. We've got Indianapolis versus Jacksonville. This one in Indy. Indianapolis 4.5-point favorites. I don't have a lot to say here.
Yeah, sorry. Is Richardson still out? I don't know.
I believe so. I mean, the Indy's still 4.5-point favorites, but I think that that line would be the same kind of regardless of the quarterback situation.
I think you prefer Flacco right now because, like, with those three receivers healthy, they actually have what should be a good passing game. It's just like Richardson just can't conduct it. So I guess the Colts could win. But Flacco, even in his good games, tends to turn the ball over at least one time. So, granted, Mac Jones not exactly trustworthy with the ball, but I just don't know if he's less trustworthy than Flacco. So, whatever. I guess I'd pick the Colts do have the better running game, which is the only thing that matters, of course. So I guess yes. I can be convinced that Flacco gets it done here. But I guess I do expect the Jaguars to keep pace, especially Brian Thomas, of course, being a means of that.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. You think he's a first-round pick next year?
Definitely sometimes. I think we might see a more like the ADP of next year might have more standard deviation from draft to draft or something, because like there might be like a guy going 4th in one draft could easily go 11th or something in another, stuff like that, with the running back pool getting so much stronger lately than in years. But definitely some people are going to take Thomas in the first, and I guess just some probably after Chase, but I can see some people even convincing themselves to take him over Jefferson or something. Not that I would do particularly that, but definitely he's going to be as high as like the 6th pick in some drafts. I think
so too. He's been pretty unbelievable this year. And
Yeah.
again, I'm still a huge Trevor Lawrence believer. So we'll see how the Jags navigate
Another
this
easily
offseason.
fixed offense right there.
Yes.
Another one of those where it's like, this isn't hard.
Yeah, you have the hard part figured out. Like, you have a talented young quarterback under contract. Like, get the rest of it going.
Look at Liam Cohen. Do you think he would struggle with Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback? Like, it can be done. You can find a way. Just do it, please.
Liam Cohen, unbelievably good job by him with the Bucs this year. Let's go Bills Patriots. We've got the Bills just 2.5-point favorites in Foxborough. That seems to suggest that Bills won't be really given much of a go here.
Right. So I don't know what to make of that other than maybe Ray Davis game, maybe Curtis Samuel, somebody like that, I guess. But not where you want to go assuming like a whole lot. Best to assume like you're working without a flashlight there, and it's anything goes kind of thing.
Do you think Gerard Mayo is coaching for his job?
I don't know. I think in a lot of ways he's been given kind of like an unfair season, and certainly when he was getting back in like week 6, there was this huge swell of media cries like they should fire him, and like I think Robert Kraft might have even leaked to the media like we might fire that guy, and it was like at that point in the year a little bit much. So at that time, I figured this seems a bit hasty. It seems like they're borderline setting the guy up. But as much as all the things that have gone wrong are not Mayo's fault, it has been a little concerning lately seeing how he deals with things. Like it seems like he's kind of just too nice and patient or something, which is not what I expected. He was, this is a guy who's a pretty mean NFL linebacker. I just pictured, I assumed he would be more of an authority figure than he is. And it seems like he's kind of just sick of it, actually. It seems like he's not even, he maybe wants to get fired because he just actually hates his job so much or something like that. So I don't know. I don't, it's hard to know from where we are what's going on with a team dysfunctional as that one. Like there might be a lot we don't know. But I do think whereas I thought it was unfair to fire Mayo in week 6 or whatever, I think it would be fair or at least like understandable if he were fired after this season. It's like, nothing inspiring there at the very least.
Yeah. And if you're in a position like them where sort of like a year zero, like you're developing Drake May, like you're trying to get some answers around him as far as the pass catchers go. And,
it feels like Drake May as the coach is, I guess, part of the problem.
Yeah, that shouldn't be the case. No matter how high you drafted him, like
every time something goes wrong, it's like, well, let's see if Drake May can get those guys together. It's on him. Good luck,
does
Drake.
Feel like that. That's a good observation. So yeah, we'll see what ends up going on in Foxborough, but either way, should be kind of a sloppy one with the Bills rolling out mostly backups, reserves. Maybe we'll see another Tyrell Shavers game. Who knows? Let's get on over to Giants Eagles. We've got the Eagles 2-point favorites in this one. Again, the Eagles not really expected to be rolling out their red carpet as far as talent on at least on the starting offense side.
Right. So I'm trying to imagine what the like stripped down version of the Eagles offense is, and I guess it's Tanner McKee handing it off to Will Shipley. Is that what's going to happen? Is he on IR? I saw that he got hurt. So I guess it's Kenneth Gainwell.
I will check that for you. Okay.
Sorry, he's got a concussion, so he's out last week. We'll see what's going on this week. So I guess like Kenneth Gainwell, is he going to have to go Memphis Kenny in this game? And what does that look like?
He certainly could.
Level. Yeah, I guess he could. That'd be good for him. So I guess I hope he does that. But it'd just be a weird pick. It'd almost be like the Eagles would have to go zero tempo, like try to finish the game with as few plays as an offense as possible. Because there's nothing else really to do here, right? Like they're just trying to end the game. So yeah, I think you can count on them taking their time getting to the line of scrimmage and snapping the ball, even if they're losing, because they won't care. So nothing to mine other than maybe Kenny Gainwell is like, some kind of something or other punt pick, but I doubt he has like a huge game, even if the Eagles win.
On the Giants side, I mean, how surprised were you by Drew Lock's performance last week? And
it doesn't make any sense, but I guess it kind of is arguably consistent with the Drew Lock a bit of just extreme polar outcomes. He can alternate between them very easily, instantly. He even as a player, he doesn't really make any sense. It's like he's this quarterback who, blue chip, like build, arm strength, like the release is pretty fast. He's fast. Like he must be really good. He must be a good quarterback, right? And then you watch him play, and it's like, nope, this is just a guy who looks like a quarterback and can throw a ball really far and fast. And he has no idea where he is, though, is the trade-off. And he's just seeing it's shapes and sounds, but he doesn't really know what they are, what they're doing, what he's looking at. So I think, but he does, of course, have like he's fearless and stuff. So he'll throw the ball. It's just he doesn't know what he's doing. But I think it's just the Colts are so bad, or like Dable dialed up so precisely, the antidote to the Colts coverages, that it was just, all open. The Colts just didn't show up. Basically, they may as well have not been there. And also, it's still one of those things. Like, even though all those things were open, like at least like 2 of the next 3 times you play it, Locke is missing some of those throws and maybe all of them. So he's not accurate. It's not as if his issues as a quarterback are just with processing and understanding. It's like there's just wild card after wild card after wild card, and I guess we just are reminded from a game like that anything is possible, but it's also like, seriously though, this will never happen again.
No, I don't think so either. So I will not be chasing that. Before we get on over to our next game, we got a quick message from our friends over at Live Golf. A new season of Live Golf Fantasy is coming in 2025. New prizes, new ways to win, and more are coming in the new season. Get ready to play and sign up now at fantasy.livegolf.com. Also got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. And look at that. We're on to Saints Bucks. Bucks 13.5-point favorites. They got the division on the line here if they win this game. Man, yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, I think that really what we're looking for here is Mike Evans, getting to 1,000 yards for the 11th straight season. He's just a bit shy of it. It's definitely attainable for him, and I think the fact that Marcus Lattimore is gone from this Saints secondary, the odds of him getting kicked out of the game are much less. That's about the extent of it for me, at least on the Bucs side.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. I was just trying to pull up his profile so he needs 85 yards. That seems pretty easily done, and it could come with 2 or 3 touchdowns by then. So maybe this week, because I guess they've not shown any concern for this yet, but they really should try to save him, physically for games, for moments that they really need him. Doesn't seem like this game gets particularly close to clearing that bar, so maybe more White and Tucker than usual.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, what are your thoughts on like Irving moving into next year as far as like a fantasy asset? Because I don't know, like I know that we liked him coming, like production profile, great, combine, concerning. And then the Bucs hadn't been able to run the ball consistently in years. So it's like, how is this going to work? And it seems like Rachaad White is kind of just, penciled into this big, snap share in this offense. And Irving has just really blown it out of the water.
Yeah, White wasn't even really playing last week, which I think it's safe to say at the very least Liam Cohen likes Irving a lot more than the other ones. It's felt all year to me like they were kind of like looking for reasons to get him on the field and take other guys off. And it's like Sean Tucker's putting up huge numbers too, and he never gets more playing time. So I don't know. It felt a little bit, and maybe it's influenced a little bit by just a style, a schematic preference explanation. Like maybe there's something about Irving and the way he runs Cohen's preferred rush concepts, but it felt like they were kind of just saving their best opportunities for Irving too, in a way. It's like even like in this last game, it's like White was producing on a per carry basis when they gave him shots, and then they didn't give him shots. And it's like when Irving slows in a game, when he goes under 4 yards of carry in a game, they don't yank his playing time and do the hot hand penalty. They say like, oh, well, we got to give him more chances so he can get going, which is the right thing. And at the very least, Irving's shown that the skill set that he demonstrated at Oregon does play in the NFL. I think it would be a little unprecedented if it could be sustained at this particular volume, though. I think there's a reason a guy like Irving, even though he was a really good player in college, including at Minnesota, there's a reason why he only had something like 3 college games of 20 or more carries. And there's a reason that none of them went over 23 or 21. I can't remember which one it was. But like right now, Cohen's kind of doing the thing that Sean McVay's been doing with Kyron Williams, which is just acting like body types are all affected by, physical strain the exact same way, which isn't true. I mean, it's like, look at Derrick Henry. Like, do you think just any running back could take all those types of care, not just the number of carries, but the types of carries, the number of hits that he's taken if he weren't built the way that he is? It's definitely not. So as much as it's been definitely confirmed that Irving's tools limitations haven't negated the materialization of his skill set at the NFL level, it doesn't necessarily address the question of like how much can he physically withstand. And it's like right after that 25 carry game, he came down with that hip thing, which he bounced back from, but it like kind of took him down for like 10 days. And that kind of thing's just going to generally happen more and more. You give that kind of workload to a guy who's 195 pounds. Like there's just a reason why that body type doesn't get those usage profiles, and it's because they usually break before people can actually see it through.
Oof. I mean, that's the long and short of it, and it's going to be really interesting to see.
And Achane too with McDaniel. Like McDaniel's kind of shown some indifference to that too, and it's like that guy gets nicked up too, and he even looks like a little bit slower than last year. Tony Pollard, going from Dallas as a off the bench guy to his starters, like you make those guys take every hit long enough, it's like they don't even look the same.
It's true. Yeah, it's definitely been true of Achane that this year, and yeah, so that there's some reasons for a little bit of caution, perhaps on.
But Irving's going to be like a second round pick next year. I probably won't be drafting him a whole lot if so, but I bet he will go up that high in some places.
People are going to be stoked on him, no doubt. Let's see. Titans, Texans. Titans. It's basically a pick 'em, actually, because the Texans are locked into their playoff spot. One interesting thing that I've noticed is that the Titans have not covered a spread at home this year.
That's awesome. It looks like they're probably going to this time because a heavy portion of the public is betting on the Texans and the line's not moving. So I on the other hand, though, I really do think the Texans are a team that's like, they've been so busted all year that if they can play well going into the playoffs, they need to take the opportunity to do it. But it's like maybe they're so bad. Like, oh, yeah, well, we can't play well in this game either, so we're just going to rest everybody still. So maybe that's the calculus here, and if so, it's like, yeah, I guess the Titans should win because Callahan needs every W he can get. He's not going to hold anything back. He's emptying the playbook right here, truly. So, yeah, Titans should, in that sense, and I guess most senses, win. But I don't know. Good for Tyjae Spears. He did better as a lead back than he did as an off the bench back. Last week as a starter, he probably his best game in the NFL. But I don't know. I guess I don't want to rule out the possibility of the Titans being so ridiculous that they blow it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been stated that Will Levis and Mason Rudolph are going to be like kind of rotating or splitting playing time in this one. So
yes.
Yeah, it should be a thing of beauty. But yeah, the Texans being locked into the 4 seed, I I agree with you where they should kind of do something to get any modicum of spark going into the postseason, but
It's nothing there. I guess they're just like, why try?
I guess, yeah, kind of lame. But the Texans have just been a bit of a disappointment this whole season anyway. Cardinals, 49ers. Cards 4-point favorites in this one in Arizona.
Let's see. So the 49ers have so there's no one additionally hurt, right? Like there's no
Well, Purdy's
every time I look
playing,
away for 1 second. Purdy's out of this one.
It looks like he was getting his elbow checked.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So as much as I am a believer in Ricky Pearsall and certainly Isaac Orendo, if the 49ers are basically sitting the real starters, like the veteran starters, then that becomes kind of concerning because then they become the NFL Europe team. And even the Cardinals defense would look pretty tough against an NFL Europe offense. So it's like Brandon Allen throwing to Ricky Pearsall is not that exciting. The Cardinals might be bad on offense. Like maybe they don't take the game. I expect the 49ers to still play tough more or less. So I definitely don't want to make it sound like the Cardinals have an easy game on offense, but the Cardinals defense should have an easy game.
Yeah, I think the Niners rolling out basically a preseason look as far as their offense goes explains a lot as to why the spread is what it is. But yeah, obviously nothing really at stake in this game beyond pride, given where both of these teams are eliminated from the playoffs. Let's go Chiefs Broncos. So the Broncos 10.5-point favorites. Waylon threw out a stat at me where this is the first time since I think 2014 that the Chiefs have been double-digit underdogs in any game. And as you can imagine, that has a lot to do with Patrick Mahomes not playing in this one and Carson Wentz stepping in. The Broncos will kind of have an idea of their fate before this game kicks off because a lot of it hinges on what happens in that Bengals-Steelers game. But regardless, at this stage, say the Broncos need to win this one. Do they cover 10.5?
No, but maybe. I don't know, John. How would I know? But no, I think if the Chiefs are truly sitting the starters, I guess I would say, yeah, okay. You know what else, John? It looks like the public for some reason is mostly betting on the Chiefs to cover. So, what else do we even really need to know at this point? That Broncos they have just enough ammo to get it done, and if Vegas is willing to put on the Denver side, maybe we go there.
Yeah, it's probably I've been kind of talking myself into the Chiefs finding a way to cover and just with that sheer amount of points, 10.5, that's a tricky number for Denver to cover, but I think with the motivations being so vastly different in this one, I think the Broncos
also
the Chiefs would. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say I think Sean Payton, if he feels like he's got the Chiefs defense like backing off and against the ropes, he'll use it as an opportunity to kind of like juice up Knicks's stats and try to create the vibe that they're a playoff team.
Right. No, I think that is definitely in play here as well. But I don't know. It should be at least a decent watch. Although the more that
normally the Chiefs cover, John. Normally the Chiefs cover or win or whatever by of course the power of Satan, and I don't think this is a game that concerns him. Like it's not of consequence, right? So it's like also his only concerns at this point would just be on the spread, like betting it himself. Yeah. So not normally his concern is helping the Chiefs win and cover, but I don't think it is here with the playoffs ahead. That's where they make their money.
Reminds me of the old South Park episode where there's a boxing match between Satan and Jesus. Crazy odds
Satan,
or something.
Satan takes the town's money by betting on Jesus to win and throwing the fight. So that's what he's doing here.
The odds on Jesus really good. 1,000 to 0. You don't even have to bet, and you get $1,000 off of it or something. Classic. Let's move on over. We've got the Seahawks and the Rams. Rams 6.5 point underdogs at home. Jimmy G show.
Thank you. Wait, really?
Yes.
Jimmy G.
Like the Jimmy G. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay. So that's interesting. I guess I mean I didn't even realize he was on a team. That's too bad. For me, it's a bad look. But anyway, I guess even though Jimmy was quite bad with the Raiders last year, maybe he's still somewhat decent by backup quarterback standards. Maybe he's somewhat decent by week 18 NFL standards. You know, do you see Jimmy Garoppolo on a preseason slate and he's playing the whole half? You're probably picking him, so maybe he's passable here, but I don't know. What I guess it's is Howell starting for the other side?
I believe it will be Geno Smith. That's why the Seahawks are favored by this much. And
right. Okay, I misread the spread. Okay. Anyway, yeah, Geno starting makes a lot more sense. I misread that too. As the Rams really struggling through this segment here. But so Geno starting versus Jimmy Garoppolo. Now I'm back to thinking Jimmy's not good enough.
No,
which is kind of where I started before I learned that he was still on a team. But I don't know. I guess the Seahawks side, if they cover, if they do meet the 6.5 points, it's like you would expect that it had a good game from basically the usual suspects. Smith and Jigba, Metcalf. The running back's harder, but Smith and Jigba should be busy if they're actually scoring that many points.
I think he will be, and I think that they will. I think the Seahawks will get to 10 wins, and I think there's like a pretty decent incentive in Geno's contract if they get to 10 wins. So
I hope he does.
I think so. Yeah, I hope so as well. And I think the Rams are just looking ahead to next week, of course, and not really being overly worried about being the 3 or the 4 seed. Is how it appears. Raiders Chargers. Chargers 4.5 point favorites in Vegas.
So, sorry, there's nothing especially at stake, or is the Chargers just kind of have to win to hold off the Broncos? Then is basically the thing.
I think that they're safely ahead of the Broncos. I think that the deal is kind of similar to one of the games that we were talking about earlier, where the Steelers-Bengals game will kind of inform the amount to which the Chargers need to play hard here, because if the Steelers lose, a win by the Chargers would put them in the 5th seed. So they would play Houston, and the 6th seed will have to go to Baltimore. So I think the Chargers would prefer to play the Texans at this point. Yeah, so if the needing to win is still on the table, I think the Chargers go kind of all out here.
Yeah, and I'm trying to. I guess the less ambitious version of the Harbaugh offense looks a lot like the ambitious one. So maybe they would cover even if they're kind of not trying to win the game. But yeah, I guess if they need to, Herbert, cleans up, takes care of business. But I guess if they have nothing to play for, who knows who's playing how much.
What are your thoughts on how Aiden O'Connell has played here late in the season for the Raiders, and would that remotely change anything as far as their offseason plans go?
The tricky, or one of the tricky things about the Raiders' position is they just aren't timing their organizational descent well as far as reaping the draft capital rewards. Like they're not getting a Trevor Lawrence out of this. They're not getting I don't know who's going to be the first quarterback taken this year, but I'm not high on any of them. I don't know that I believe that there's any like top 20 pick at quarterback this year. That certainly there will be one. I just don't know if they'll be worth it. So the Raiders, even with a high pick, there might not be much to be done about the quarterback position. Like they, very real sense, it's possible they can't do better even if they try to. So That's kind of the main. That's the main variable. I think the driving detail here, because I don't think O'Connell has been particularly good. It's just he's been almost exactly like you would have thought he was as a prospect, which is like he'll be a good backup. It's like that's exactly what he is, and it's all he can really be. But maybe the Raiders aren't in a position to find anything better anyway.
I kind of am wondering if the Raiders like try to trade for JJ McCarthy or something.
That would make a lot more sense than trying to, granted, they'd ideally get more because that pick they're going to have is going to be 2 or 1 or something like that. So they'd ideally be able to get McCarthy and more by some substantial amount. But that might be their best option at this point, because I would put McCarthy ahead of all these guys, even though I thought McCarthy was like, I don't know. I thought he was going to go higher than he did, but I thought he was worth like a early second rounder or something. But I don't know if I even believe that about any of these guys in this upcoming class.
No, McCarthy would be the best of this particular lot. It's not a really strong quarterback class. So I don't know. The Raiders, by virtue of like winning these soft matchups late in the season, have kind of tanked their draft position a little bit. So we'll see if a first rounder is on the table, if that's what it would take to get to have the Vikings trade McCarthy away. But
Tom Telesco was going to fire Antonio Pierce for, blaming the losing team on him, but now he's going to fire Antonio Pierce for doing like the Brian Flores thing and refusing to tank.
Either way,
Tom Telesco is going to extremely fire Antonio Pierce. It's the lock of the friggin' offseason.
Yeah. It's too bad. I do like Antonio Pierce. I root for him, but yeah, it feels like
Team Antonio for sure. When it's Tom Telesco, that's the other side. Like we're good. We're gonna get you, Tom.
It's coming. Let's go. Dolphins Jets. Dolphins. We're not really sure if Tua is going to be out there, so therefore we've got the Jets this one's set at about a pick 'em. Books are kind of differing on their pricing for this game, but I'm dubious that Tua is able to give it a go here.
That's fine. Tyler Huntley's the best quarterback in this game. We don't need Tua, but I don't know.
Last week
probably. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Good for him. But it's a bad offense still. The running game isn't even popping lately, which really becomes a problem if you can't push the ball downfield to offset that. So I can see the Jets defense showing up, probably doing some late hits, things like that, trying to kind of turn it into a hockey game. And then maybe Miami, if only because of like the Tyreek factor, I don't know, maybe they can strike back, but I really don't want to pick a side in this game.
Nope, it'll be one of the more forgotten games of Week 18. I don't really have a ton else to add to that one, and then let's round it out. Game of the week, maybe game of the year, at least regular season wise. Vikings Lions. We've got the Lions 2.5 point favorites.
The actual Super Bowl.
This is the Super Bowl. The stakes are great. I mean, you
unless they meet in the NFC Championship game, then that's the Super Bowl. But for now, this is the Super Bowl.
And how are we treating it? Are you in on this Vikings team, or you think the Lions are able to hold on to that 1 seed that they've had for so much of this season?
I don't know. I think the Vikings are plenty dangerous. Of course, the Lions, with the injuries they've had on defense, they're in a tough spot. I mean, it's not their fault at all. The defense had some limitations, I think, at corner going into the year, but it was fine as long as the run defense was as good as it was, and as good as if the pass rush was showing up the way that it was before all these people got hurt. But I just don't know if you can take, Hutchinson, McNeil, Davis. The linebackers have been missing a lot of starts through various people. So the Lions are not necessarily what we've come to just get used to. The offense is, but the defense is kind of just bad. And or at least not nearly as good as the Vikings. So I don't know. I feel like the Vikings are the more complete team. So then I'm kind of like pressing the margins are getting pressed to sort of the question of like, well, what do I think about Dan Campbell versus Kevin O'Connell? And then I still have no idea because different factors as coaches, they're both doing a great job, but it's like O'Connell is a hands-on schemer with the Vikings offense. And we know at least he's going to have, or we have reason to believe at least he's going to have a good offensive game plan. They're going to have good results as an offense. But do you try to make room for the calculation, the consideration of, but what about just like Dan Campbell's, stat booster effect? Like when he it's like a video game or something where you play a certain card or whatever, and the guys, all their numbers go up or something. It's like Dan Campbell seems to sometimes have that effect with the Lions. So, but I think I'm leaning Vikings because I believe they have more punches they can throw right now.
I'm with the Vikings too in this spot. Like as a sort of neutral guy on the matter, I enjoy the Lions a lot, and I feel like it's very unfortunate the amount of injuries that have piled up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And you take that into account, and you look at the way that the Vikings defense is playing on the other side, and they're healthy. They might not have gone into the year with as much talent, but Flores has done an amazing job. So I think the Vikings are able to kind of make enough stops in this particular setup and get the win, just because again, on the other side, I'm not as confident that the Lions are going to be able to keep a lid on that Vikings offense.
Yeah, that's definitely how I see it. And I guess the thing is, I should say it's still really easy to imagine the Lions winning, and maybe it's the wrong thought process to go at it the way that I do. But I was kind of just, it's like offense cancels out offense, defense versus defense, advantage Minnesota. But if for some reason the game goes into a shootout script, as in like the Vikings defense doesn't hold a meaningful advantage, doesn't dictate a meaningful difference here, then it's just total coin flip thing, because last team that has the ball kind of thing. Because I definitely believe that if Ben Johnson, I generally expect Ben Johnson to have the offense show up here. It's just kind of like it seems a little tiny bit easier for the Vikings offense to show up.
Yep. So therefore, I think we're going to get a game that's as good as people are anticipating. I think this is going to be an awesome way to wrap up the regular season. Again, a lot on the line. Two phenomenal teams going at it. I can't wait. Kind of planning the whole Sunday around that game, really. But that's going to do it for us here as we put a bow on the 2024 regular season. And next week we'll be back to preview. Do they still call it Super Wild Card Weekend? Probably.
I don't know if we don't around here, John.
That's right. No, it's Wild Card Weekend to me. Dang it!
But
that's going to do it.
Sorry.
All good. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us here. Big thanks to our sponsors over at DraftKings Pick 6, over at Live Golf, and of course our friends over at the Blue Wire Network. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.